something.
So two things you had to figure out: supply and actually consumer demand.
Yeah.
So driver supply and consumer demand. What was that like, sort of over the 10, 12 weeks?
Yeah, so the number one thing we were very scared about was whether or not consumers would want this product. And it's because delivery is not a new idea. It's been around since horses. It's been around forever. And so obviously the US is a very highly capitalistic market. So if something doesn't exist, maybe there's a good reason why it doesn't. And so we wanted to make sure from the get-go whether or not consumers would pay us for the service. So that was one big question. The other was whether or not we knew that restaurants had a need for it. We didn't know if they would pay us. That was a second pillar. And then the third was whether or not there would exist drivers who would actually want access to this. And so early on, we did all the deliveries. One of the best parts of doing all the deliveries, besides teaching us what are all of the steps within a delivery, is what customers wanted. And our earliest customers tended to be families with young children. It tended to be the mom who made a majority of the decisions when it came to meal prep and food. And so they told us what they wanted. They told us what was important. They told us what restaurants that they preferred. But the most important thing was that they kept coming back and again, without our throwing advertising at them, coupons or discounts at them. That kind of gave us the check mark, if you will, on growing organically on the consumer front. With drivers, because we did every single delivery, it was very easy to speak knowledgeably about what it would be. So we would just post ads on Craigslist, see who shows up, and then started filtering different segments of drivers. That was one where we weren't necessarily sure whether or not there would ever exist a large enough workforce interested in this type of work. One of the questions we had asked ourselves was, would drivers only be interested in working for a platform that pays the most? Because obviously it's going to be more valuable to transport Gary than to transport a burrito. And so one of the earliest tests we ran was we recruited two groups of drivers, roughly speaking 20 drivers who drove for UberX at the time and 20 who delivered for DoorDash. The control, if you will, variable was that they both earned $20 an hour, each group. I made them an offer to work for $25 an hour, guaranteed.